In this video, we're going to go over the specifications and do a deep dive into the technical details on a Sigenergy product. Now, before you click away, if you're someone that's not technical, I'd highly recommend stay and watch this video. A lot of technical people always end up watching the technical stuff, and I think it's really important that if you're non-technical, these are probably the videos that you want to watch and learn about these products, because I see a lot of people buy products in the marketplace and are unhappy with what they got because they didn't understand what they're buying. So hopefully in this video, I can explain to you how this works in a bit of a non-technical way to learn about all the technicals about this product. So let's do a deep dive into the Sigenergy products, which I'm pretty excited about. Now, this is what the Sigenergy product all-in-one unit looks like. Now, I know I've been talking the last few videos about being an all-in-one product. Technically, it's not an all-in-one unit. It does have a gateway, which goes beside, and an energy meter. If you're you're going to want an energy meter if you're in a grid-connected situation to use these. And let's talk about some of the single-phase and three-phase benefits. With this product, the reality is, before in the past, I would say three-phase is probably not recommended for people off-grid unless you have a really big system. With a lot more people owning EVs off-grid and a lot bigger appliances, and the way these new products work, I would probably highly recommend, if you're going to go a big system, actually install a three-phase system. You might not have any three-phase appliances, but the way these new products work, it'd be the real benefit, and it's a lot more cost-effective using technology like this. In a traditional Victron Energy design system, it becomes 3 times more expensive because you're sort of buying 3 of everything to make it all work. Where this new technology and how it all works is a lot more reliable, and they do a lot of unbalanced phases. So what that basically means, so if you're in a single phase means there's just one power cable in your house that everything runs through that one active. In a three-phase, there's 3 different lines. Now, traditionally before, in a three-phase system, with a Victron Energy system as an example, you've got 5 kVA, so 5,000 watts of energy on each phase, we'll call it. If you turn on a kettle, a toaster, and the Jaff line, making some jaffles on that one phase, it's very likely you're going to have a blackout because there's too much energy on that one phase in a three-phase system. It's important that you think about it and go, okay, well, in my kitchen, I've got 2 power points there on one phase, another 2 power points, another phase. Turn that one on. I've got a third one over here. So you've got one phase in each part of the kitchen. So you balance out your loads and you turn on all 3 things that come on 3 different inverters, if that makes sense, in a single phase situation. Where this newer technology, they have the ability to be able to do unbalanced phases. So they actually take the energy from one phase and shift it over another phase. You still will have a blackout if you've got too many things turned on at once and you overload what the capability of that phase shifting can do, if you think about it like that. But the real benefit of this stuff here, you could go with a 3-phase. And I think more, if you're going to go with an electric vehicle, 3 phases definitely, you can charge the car faster, but also in those times when you want to plug the car in and take energy out of the car back to the house, you get access to more usable power. Your car's going to become a part of your off-grid living system using products like this. So in the single phase, they do a 5 to a 6 kilowatt at the moment. I do have some inside information. They get some 8s coming, which is pretty exciting. But right now, if this is something that you want to buy and put in your home, it's actually really simple to buy a couple of 6s or a couple of 5s. The reality is I'd always probably go the 6. From a cost point of view, it's a couple of $100 more difference between the 5 and the 6. And I honestly think they're probably software locked. I just don't see a company of this size manufacturing 2 different products. So they're probably likely the same product, it's probably just software locked. SolarEdge has done the same thing with their products, where they've got the same product and they software lock it to what size it is, which is great because in the future, or you can get them to do it, they'll actually unlock the software and give you a bigger inverter, which is great. So in the 3-phase, they do a 5 to a 25 kilowatt. Like I said, if you are going to go a bigger system, it's probably more economical, depending on your situation, your site. It might be better off going a 3-phase system using technology like this. I wouldn't recommend it traditionally in a Victron system, but using technology like this, it could be a game changer. Okay, so I'm really going to dive into the single phase specifications in this video. So let's talk about the 5 kilowatt inverter. It can take 10 kilowatts of PV power in it, which is pretty great. It's double. Here in Australia, we have a silly rule that if you've got a 5 kilowatt inverter, you can only put 6.6 kilowatts of panels up. That's more for rebates and government incentives and things like that. But most 5 kilowatt inverters in Australia will take 7 to 8 kilowatts of panels. So this taking 10 is a lot more anyway than most other things on the market. Now, the 6 kilowatt inverter can take 12 kilowatts of panels. That is huge. And it's one thing I would highly recommend if you are buying a solar system, fill your roof, maximize on panels. That is one thing you will not be disappointed in. If you want to save money in an off-grid situation, I'd recommend put less battery storage in up front because you can always buy more batteries and add batteries in the future. Panels is the most complicated and hard thing to add. So I'd always recommend the most amount of panels. Now let's go down to the AC output backup. So in a grid connected situation, if you are connected to the grid, you got a 5 kilowatt inverter on the 5 kilowatt inverter and a 6.6 kilowatt apparent power. So one of the downsides, I suppose, with Victron, we'll talk about there in the off-grid situation, because we talk a lot about Victron on this channel, that if it's a 5 kVA inverter, the hotter you run that inverter, you lose a lot of capacity. So I've actually seen situations before where I've had a 5 kVA inverter shut down at 3,000 watts because, and this is me pushing things to extreme, running it really hard. If you really want to, if you look at the data sheet on Victron and you see the temperature specifications, it will tell you how much energy you will lose in those hot temperature situations. So, you know, I see a lot of people get this wrong in motorhomes. They put a 5 kVA inverter in, shove it in next to the motor in the bus, and then what happens? It gets so bloody hot, and then you don't get the power out of it that you're expecting. So with these, they're a 6,000 watt inverter. So they're going to run at 6,000 watts consistently, which is great. And the peak is at 6,600 VA. So that's volt amps. That's what the kVA stands for. Kilovolt amps is what it actually is, the kVA. So 6,600 volt amps. Now, in an off-grid situation, one of the, I suppose, the benefit of Victron over one of these units is it'll spike twice as much for 3 seconds. So a 5 kVA Victron will spike for 10 kVA for 3 seconds, where with these inverters in the off-grid situation, they will give you 9,000 watts, not kVA, 9,000 watts for 10 seconds. So it's going to be way more than enough on the 6 kVA unit, on the 6,000 watt unit here, to handle like a water pump startup or induction cooktop, or those inductive motors that have that really high startup current. That's going to help handle those. And the 5 kVA one, or the 5,000 watt one, has a 7,500 watt peak output. So that'll be, you know, for a small off-grid system, that'll be great. And like I said, the Victron's actually only for 3 seconds. It spikes for twice as much. With this here, actually does it for 10 seconds, a little bit less, but it actually does it for 10 seconds, which is probably actually more useful in my opinion. Now, the operating temperature with these batteries and these inverters and what they've been tested and this data that it reads on. So it's -40 up to 70 degrees. So these guys have done some great testing. So these specifications that we're talking about are actually from -40 to 70 degrees. These products have been tested at, which is pretty amazing. Now, I'll talk about a Victron product here. I've actually, on the other side of things as well before, I've had a 3 kVA Victron pull 4,600 watts out of it because I've had it shoved in a wine cooler, really cool climate, and we've run it really hard doing some testing, and it really impressed. Like, it consistently run 4,600 watts because it was really, really cold. So, you know, where these products here are tested from -40 to 70 degrees, well, it's actually, sorry, it's -30. So the storage temperature range is -40 to 70 degrees, and the operating temperature is -30 to 60 degrees. Relative humidity, 95%, is pretty common. Most things in altitude less than 4,000 meters. One benefit of these is the cooling is convection, so it doesn't have any noisy fans. That's another complaint all the time I hear from people with Victron. Fronis is another one that gets a huge complaint out in the marketplace. It's actually been really noisy. ABB FEMA, they had a lot of bad press back in the days of their inverters were so noisy back in the day. Completely different these days. They got rid of the fans, went more convection, heat sink on the back, and that's what these guys have done. The inverters are noisy when you run them harder. So, you know, and the reality is, an off-grid situation, when you're sleeping, your inverter's not really running hard, so it's pretty quiet anyway. So something to think about. They're IP66 rated, which is great. So it means they can be installed outside. So a lot more complication of areas and things. And one of the things for us off-grid, buying these products and installing them, you know, there's $2,000 to $3,000 extra expense to put them in all these big steel cabinets we've been doing. Where this here, I think it's about the money is better spent to more battery storage. So instead of having to buy a cabinet and invest the money in a steel cabinet just to enclose your stuff for your insurances, and I call these steel cabinets insurances. I've had systems over the years die from geckos and rats and mice get inside things and do their business that's killed the inverters, you know, and they're not covered under warranty or insurances. Well, you can get it through your home and contents insurance. But with this here, they're IP rated. You don't have to buy that product, and it's more reliable because the product itself, just the nature where it's designed, it's IP rated, which is great. Now, we'll talk about the gateway. So this is one of the real big benefits, I suppose, with Victron, why Victron's really dominated and what I've liked using Victron over the years. Victron has a 100 amp transfer switch. So what does that mean in real world application if you're not a technical person? What it actually means is you can shove the inverter in, you can run everything through your house through that inverter. because it can transfer 100 amps from the grid. I'd love to hear from you guys in the States. What's a typical size circuit breaker on your house? I know in Australia we have 63 amp because we're 240 volt. So in the States, you guys are probably maybe 120 amp. I'd love to hear in the comments below, what is the size of the circuit breakers of most common houses? So the benefit of this with Victron, you can shove the whole house through it. And so what happens is that every single load in your house goes through that device. And then, so if you've only got a 5 kVA Victron and you're got the electric oven, the kettle, the toaster, all that stuff turn on, and you don't have enough power, it'll grab it from the grid and it'll all go through the Victron. In a blackout situation, you can choose what to use. So you can be, okay, well, I'm going to use the kettle now. I'm going to use the toaster. I'm going to turn the aircon on. Everything's on your house is running through it. Now, I'll pick on SunGrow here. The problem with SunGrow have a 25 amp backup switch. So in that situation with that 25 amp backup switch, with the SunGrow is when the installer's installing your system, they have to pick and go, what loads do you want on your backup? So you have to pick your lights, your TVs, your fridges. You can't have everything on the backup and be choosy. When they wire their house, there's only dedicated circuits that go on there. So something to think about that with that there. And these guys do the same thing. You can have your whole house backed up. In that blackout situation, you can pick and choose in those moments of what you want to run, not when the installer's wiring it and doing that wiring installation. So something to think about. And I see SunGrow probably coming out with something similar to this and compare. SunGrow is a really innovative company, so let's hope they do it. So that's your gateway. With the battery specifications and with these products, what I really like about this is actually they're talking about usable capacity. So when you say it's a 5 kilowatt hour battery, it's 5 kilowatt hours usable. And if you're buying the 8, it's 8 kilowatt hours usable. I know Tesla do a very similar thing, that they've got 13.5 kilowatt hours. Their batteries are a lot bigger than what they really are. So something to think about there, that with the battery specifications, there's not much more to talk about the batteries. It's a LiPo4 chemistry, which is probably the safest on the marketplace. Also, they've got these really cool, they've got fire extinguishers built into every single battery. So they've got this foam that if there is a fire in one cell within the battery, it'll actually contain itself within the battery. With all the safety issues and stuff going on with batteries, these guys have thought of that. If something does happen, that will nail that. But there's really not much more to talk about the battery, except there's a 5 and an 8. You can mix and match them. I love that. You can mix and match because you can really tailor your budget. And the other really good thing about mixing and matching, it's not about right now, today, when you're buying. The problem is normally in the future when you want to add another battery. Let's say these guys have made an 8 kilowatt hour battery. It's really economical. You want to get that. This allows you to buy that and throw that in there, and you can actually add the 8 kilowatt hour, because the bigger the battery is normally more economical. So which is pretty great. What makes these products really innovative and all this stuff works, they've got this power conversion system. So if you think about from a solar panel point of view, it's like an optimizer. So inside the batteries have these PCSs, which basically takes the DC from the battery and changes it to whatever's required. This what allows these products to work with your car with a high voltage battery, because they'll take the battery. I think the batteries inside there's a 32 volts. They would take that 32 volt battery and they'll jack it up to really high voltages, so they can actually send that voltage out, really low losses, energy efficiency out through that same bus bar we talked about before. The bus bar is what connects all the DC together, out to your car and charge your car at high voltages. So that's what the real game changer about these. And I think it's all built around these PCSs, which there's power conversion system, which is like an optimizer for your battery, if you think about it like that. So every single battery has its own optimizer or own, it's DC, so it's more of an optimizer than a micro inverter inside the battery. So with these single phase car chargers, you've got a 12 kilowatt DC charger, which is great. And also it's bi-directional. So that means you can plug it into your car and you can use that power from your car in your home. If you're off grid in that situation, giving you, let's just say you buy an MG. It's probably, one of the most popular. I think it's a little amazing car here in Australia at the moment. The MG has won, car of the year like 3 or 4 years in a row. And the electric car just won it last year. And they're absolutely amazing. Everyone I've talked to loves those cars. You'll be able to plug this in, take that energy from your MG, that extra 50, 60 kilowatt hour battery you've got in that car, and you'll be able to use that in your home storage. So that's amazing. That's game changing from that point of view. Just remember, you're going to design your house to make sure you design your loads and the capacity that you've got your car around to be able to charge it in the middle of the day, and then use that of a night. Otherwise, it's a bit of a waste of time. But the other really good thing you do is, in Australia, I spoke to a customer the other day, and they go to a shopping center, they charge their EV for free. Of a day, they're retired, they've got all the time in the world. So literally, if that worked for you, you could literally, in an off-grid situation, get a free EV charger where you work closely, plug it in, charge it, come home, and you can charge your batteries off-grid from a free charge from the grid, which is pretty cool. So it's something to think about. Now, if you're a newbie and you're still watching, well done. This is probably one of the most beneficial things for someone that's not really technical and haven't understanding all this sort of stuff is actually the ChatGPT integration into the app. There's so many features of this here where it's going to help you educate you, because that's one of the biggest things going off grid, and I'm really passionate about. And a bit of a plug here, we actually do sell an off-grid course to teach you to go off grid, and I'm now rethinking about that course and how to design it because this is a game changer. This is really going to change, probably one of the biggest things that's going to change fundamentally how we live off grid and be self-sufficient with these new technologies and new products. But the app's amazing. So ChatGPT will be built into it. It's going to be a real educational platform. And it's going to educate you in real time. Because sometimes the problem is when we educate ourselves, we might go watch and we learn, we get that information. And then when the moment happens, the information's gone, we can't find it. And we really need the information. Think, oh, what was that, what I learned? With ChatGPT, what's amazing with this in the live situation, it's really going to help educate you live in that moment what's going on. And it's going to talk to you because pretty much it's just a database of all the good things and bad things that have ever happened with this product. The more and more customers have more interactions, it's going to learn, it's going to help share that information with you and help educate you. And don't forget, guys, if you really want to support the channel, down below, register your link to our website to get our newsletters and all that information that we sort of tend to put out there before we put onto YouTube. Also, as well, we're starting to work with some partners where you get discount codes and actually rebates from suppliers and manufacturers to help support the channel grow. So if you want to help support the channel, register down below. We'll give you a link to all the products that are available on the market you actually get discounts to that through our channel, which helps support the channel, helps us make more of this content. And if you're not looking to buy, I'd just love to hear them below, whether it's good or bad, you want to give me a hard time, feel free, comment below and let me know your thoughts on these videos. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay energized.